Hi BookTube, it's Amy. I'm here for my Friday reads as usual. So last weekend I did read The Passionate Years by Caress Crosby, and I filmed a video about that book, so maybe I'll link that review slash discussion in the comments below here. But after that I decided to pick up Bouvard and Pichet by Gustave Flaubert. And that's a document that's not related to the book at all. Take that out of there. Oh, and these are my notes. I was reading at the pub, and I did the very cliche move of writing on a paper napkin. And this list will make sense to you in a minute. Gardening, farming, chemistry, physiology, medicine, geology, archaeology, architecture, antiques, history, historical fiction, reciting tragedy, comedy, acting, playwriting, politics, philosophy, social contracts, church and state, political philosophy, fear of disillusionment, gymnastics, first aid. So, that'll make sense to you in a minute. And this is just a napkin from one of the pubs I like to go to. So Bouvard and Pichet is Gustave Flaubert's final novel, and I was inspired to pick this up by Mayberry Book Club. He said that he was going to be rereading it soon, and he suggested he'd like to hear my thoughts. And I said, maybe I will, maybe I won't. And then I discovered I had a copy on the shelf, and I decided not to wait until April, and I just dove in now, and I've been quite enjoying it. So it was Flaubert's last book, and a quick Google online told me that some people love it and some people think it's the most unreadable book ever written. And I guess some people could find it unreadable. I think it's the kind of book that relies on the reader having a certain level of learning, a certain level of knowledge. I also heard it described as an excuse for Flaubert to show off everything he knows. Essentially, it is the story of two older gentlemen, two copy clerks, who are near retirement age, but one of them suddenly inherits a fortune. And off they go to a country estate together to live out the rest of their lives together because they're best friends. And at first they think they'll take up gardening and farming because their shared dream was to move to the country and own a farm. But as you can expect from someone who doesn't know anything about farming or about growing things, it's a comedy of errors, and the best laid plans do not work out for them. And so then they decide that perhaps if they learn a little bit about science, about chemistry, perhaps that will help them to garden better. But they soon give up the idea of farming altogether in favor of the chase for knowledge. And this list of topics is a list of all their obsessions, of all their at-home learning attempts. And it gets quite precarious when they start trying to practice medicine themselves and start to challenge the local doctor. It gets even more precarious when they get into archaeology and antiques and feel the need to blunder onto private property or onto public property in some cases and take objects that they desire. They actually end up stealing from the local church even because there is a particular bowl that they so desire so much because it is an antique. And their knowledge is vast but dubious. Sometimes as I'm reading, I get the sense that they don't really know what they're talking about at all. And some of their, quote, antiques, well, they're old, but that doesn't mean they're desirable or valuable. And so I'm quite close to being finished, actually. I've got about a quarter of the book left, and we'll see where it takes them. I'm quite enjoying the novel, but it's definitely a book for people who have some degree of education, because I think only in knowing a little bit about each of these topics will you see what a comedy of errors their search for knowledge is. And I'll talk more about this book next week in my Friday Reads, or perhaps I'll film a review of it when I finish. Quite enjoying it though. Definitely something at this point I would recommend. It's a very different style of novel compared to Madame Bovary or Sentimental Education. Definitely not a romance novel, but I think there's a lot to think about here as well, because Flaubert is definitely into his social commentaries. So I'll put that aside for now. I didn't really touch Ulysses at all this week. As you can see, it's still sitting back here where I left it. I'm a tiny bit of the way through. But I do this week have my guide through Ulysses that I mentioned last week. I took it out of the bedroom, brought it over to the desk. It's the Bloomsbury book by Harry Blamers. And I haven't dipped into it yet. I ordered it used off of AbeBooks, so it's a library discard from Stockport Central Library, wherever that is. And I don't know what the best approach here is. Should I dip in a little bit as I read? Should I wait until I'm done Ulysses to read this? Should I read this first and then go back to Ulysses? I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I think for now I'm not going to be reading any more Ulysses, at least in the next few days, because once I finish the Flaubert, I think I'm in the mood for some more Anthony Trollope. And since I recently read The Warden, I do want to pick up Barchester Towers by Trollope, which is the second book in that Barchester series. And just by chance, I wasn't sure if I did, but just by chance, when I went to my shelf, I realized I do indeed own a copy of it. And I'm not even sure where I got this. There's a price for $3 in the front, so it's possible this was one of my older finds from Black Squirrel Books before they switched over to their price tag system, but even then that seems like a rather low price for them. So I'm not sure where I came across it, but I have it, so I'm going to read it. And just seeing in here, it's actually quite convenient. So I read The Warden, I have Barchester Towers. The third book of the series is Dr. Thorne. I have that one in a folio edition on my shelf, although I've seen the mini-series adaptation of Dr. Thorne, so I already know the plot for that, so it won't be quite as much as a surprise going into that one. But then once I read Dr. Thorne, I also have a copy on my shelf over there of Framley Parsonage. The Small House at Allington, I think that's the only one that I don't own, or maybe I do. I do have a copy of The Last Chronicle of Barchet, so I'm good to go with this series. I can just read my way through at my own pace. The back says this is Trollope's comic masterpiece of plotting and bad backstabbing. It opens as the Bishop of Barchester lies on his deathbed. Soon a pitched battle breaks out over who will take power, involving among others the zealous reformer Dr. Prudy, his fiendish wife, and the schemer Obadiah Slope. It's one of the best-loved novels in Trollope's Chronicles of Barchet series, which captured 19th century provincial England with wit, worldly wisdom, and an unparalleled gift for characterization. So I hope this one is as good as The Warden, because I really loved The Warden that I read last week, and I'm hoping I'm going to love this one too. So that's what I'm reading at the moment. Let me know what you've been reading, what you plan to read this weekend, and I hope that you have a good one.